All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I am your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. Now, the X Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, if there's a special guest you'd like us to bring on, maybe we can help you with a problem that you have by referring you to one of our many guests that we've had over the last 34 years. My email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Douglas Hodgson. We're going to be talking about comparative religion and spirituality this hour. And Douglas is in Australia. So Douglas, welcome to Canada and welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, thank you, Rob. I'm delighted to be with you and your listeners and looking forward to sharing with you my research findings into the near-death experience.
Now, before we went on air, you were telling me that you're originally from Canada, up near Thunder Bay, and you have relatives here in St. Catharines.
Well, I used to have relatives in St. Catharines, but when I was 30 in 1983, I emigrated to Australia. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I didn't think I was emigrating. I thought I was going for a couple of years.
Right.
But I've lived in Australia ever since, so I'm a dual Canadian-Australian citizen.
Well, we're glad you're with us tonight. And tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm retired now, but I worked as a university academic for 35 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Mainly in Australia and New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And I was a professor of law, and just before I retired, I was dean of a law school. And my areas of expertise were causation law and human rights law. But when I retired in early 2018, my research interests shifted. And I became interested in reading all I could get my hands on in terms of comparative religion and literature on the near-death experience. So I have quite a wide range of research interests.
Now, Douglas, have you yourself ever had a near-death experience?
No, I have not, Rob. I've read many accounts of those who have had them, but I have not had any near-death experiences. But I have had what you might term paranormal experiences, but certainly nothing that was out of body.
So what prompted you to do research and write spiritual revelations from beyond the veil?
Well, in or about 1990, I was in the University of Western Australia General Library, and I happened to pick up a book by Dr. Raymond Moody entitled Life After Life. And I read it from cover to cover and was absolutely fascinated by what I read. But being a busy university academic, you don't have that much time for your own recreational or hobby reading.
Right.
Most of what you read is related to your work. So when I retired at the end of 2017, a whole new world opened up to me. And one of the first books I read was a book by Dr. Eben Alexander entitled Proof of Heaven, A Neurosurgeon's Journey into the Afterlife, in which Dr. Alexander recounts his own near-death experience.
Yeah.
And that rekindled my former interest from 1990 into the near-death experience. And I resolved to find out more about this because I was so captivated by it. So I actually found an excellent website that EANS has put together, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and I started to research intensively their archives. And the archives contains hundreds upon hundreds of written accounts of those who have claimed to have had a near-death experience. And I poured through dozens and dozens of these accounts. And the more I read, the more I realized that although they're saying things a little differently with different nuances, basically they're saying the same thing and relating the same types of experiences and messaging that they received. So being a good university academic, I began taking copious notes and collating the material, and it slowly started to take the form of a book. But even at that point, I wasn't sure whether there was enough in a book to be published. But then I started to read other accounts in which the soul consciousness, when it was outside the physical body, after going down the tunnel of light and encountering the light at the veil or the threshold,
Right.
the messages that were given to the soul consciousness by the light or the beings of light were to the effect, your earthly mission is not yet finished. You must return to your body and reveal to humanity the messages and divine knowledge you have been imparted with at the veil. And at that point, I had a light bulb moment. I realized that as an author, I could be a mouthpiece for some 500 people who had a near-death experience and wrote it down. So I regard myself, from at least my book, as a mouthpiece or a spokesperson for the messaging, which is basically uniform and common, that they received at the veil, which they must share with humanity.
Now, we've had the opportunity of having Raymond Moody on the show. We've also had Eben Alexander on the show. What did you gain from your conversations with them or their readings from them that solidified your interest in near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences?
That's a good question, Rob. Having read both books before I did this research, I was just bowled over by the commonalities, by the shared experiences. To give you a couple of examples, Dr. Alexander mentions in his book that the soul consciousness, when it's in the world of spirit, enjoys complete freedom of movement, and it can become a time traveler. The soul consciousness transcends both space and time in the world of spirit, and it can access any place on earth or any historical period that it wishes. All it has to do is think of the time period and the place on earth, and the soul consciousness will be immediately there. Now, I read that very same observation in a number of NDE accounts that appeared on the EANS website. So much of what I read in Moody's and Alexander's works, I found replicated in the NDE accounts. And that's what made it so exciting to try to get this material out there for the benefit of humanity.
What do you think the importance of or the significance of near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, is for society and what we have to look forward to?
Well, that's a huge question to answer, but I'll concentrate in two areas. Number one, the NDEers uniformly state that the fear of death is human error, that we spend so much time fearing about our lives, how we live it, or fearing our death, our eventual death, that we don't live life to the full. And the NDEers say that there's no such thing as death. Our physical body dies,
Right.
but our soul consciousness continues on. It's eternal, it's infinite. The energy remains the same. And as one NDEer described, death is like going from one room to another. Your energy remains basically the same, although in the world of spirit, there is elevated awareness and expanded consciousness. But it's like going from one room to the other. Only your perspective changes. So their main message is we should not waste time fearing our inevitable deaths, that a beautiful afterlife awaits us. The other important message of the NDEers, a consistent message, is how we are to live our lives, what life on earth is really about. And of course, it's all about unconditional love. Understanding what that concept is, the highest, the purest form of love, and living it in our daily lives. Also, to realize that we should never underestimate how impactful our words and actions or inactions, and even our thoughts are on other people, because these all have ripple effects. They use the metaphor of dropping a pebble into a still pond of water. We may not realize it, but the words we utter or the actions we take have never-ending ripple consequences affecting others. So we have to be careful when we exercise our free will to choose wisely and not to hurt other people. And the main message is that we are here on earth really to learn about unconditional love, to practice it in our daily lives, and to serve God and to acquire divine knowledge by giving spiritual and material charity to others.
David, please stand by. I hate to do this, but I do have to take
Sure.
my break. Exonation, our guest this hour is Douglas Hodgson. His website is o-books.com, and we'll be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown classic radio, classic1220.ca, and wow, Comparative Religions and Spirituality is the order of the day. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Right. The future isn't just one night. It's written in the moonlight.
All your life you've waited for love to come and stay.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Our guest this hour is Douglas Hodgson. His website is o-books.com. Douglas, where do we go from here? For example, near-death experiences have been talked about by everyone. You mentioned Raymond Booty, you mentioned Eben Alexander. And over the years, we've had many people talk about near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. But in today's new age, where we're talking about quantum physics, is quantum physics, in your opinion, going to be the tell-all and the explanation for these phenomena?
Yes, I can address that, Rob. Many of the NDEers refer to particle theory and subatomic quantum physics. I had a chapter in my book, Spiritual Revelations from Beyond the Veil, entitled Interconnectedness or Oneness. So we live on Earth in a dualistic dimension of separation and separateness. All human beings and all objects are separate and apart. But that is an earthly illusion, according to the NDEers. When we leave our body, as one NDEer said, I no longer had a sense of me. I was everything and everything was me.
Mm-hmm.
You enter in the world of spirit a realm of oneness. Everything is interconnected. You tap into the universal consciousness. So on Earth, we cannot appreciate this interconnectedness, but once we enter the world of spirit, according to the NDEers, we are able to. We are energy. Everything in the universe is energy, connected at the smallest subatomic quantum level. We are source energy, the energy of God, which animates, permeates, and enlivens everything. And we think in terms of solid objects, the desk and chair we're sitting at.
Right.
And the NDEers say that is because the atoms are more densely packed together. But the space between human beings, when they're talking in a conversation, they are still connected by these subatomic particles. They are just less densely packed. So this is the concept of interconnectedness or oneness. And a lot of spiritual or religious exhortations flow from that. So if we harm others, we are basically harming ourselves because we are all an interconnected oneness. But I think that what the NDEers are saying and what Scripture has said for thousands of years are now converging in the areas of particle theory and subatomic quantum physics. It's fitting together very nicely.
But are we just trying to make the round peg fit into the square circle, into the square peg area, that we're just grasping because we want so much to believe there's much more to life than you're born, you die, and that's it? So how can we be sure about what the reality of near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences are?
Well, again, I'll quote from the NDEers.
Mm-hmm.
They use this analogy that when we dream at night and wake up in the morning, we realize that our dream really wasn't real, that our earthly waking consciousness is real. But these people who have had the near-death experience have come back from the veil, and they now say that the ultimate reality is what I experienced out of my body. The earthly reality, it's a wondrous, awesome creation, and it does have a purpose, but it's an illusion. It's a dream, like we have at night. The ultimate reality is in the world of spirit. And many of them, and this is including atheists and agnostics, as well as deeply religious people, they say when they come back from the veil, they have certainty and proof of the existence of God or the source or the one consciousness, whatever you want to call the supreme being, and they have proof of the heavenly realms. They are certain of it. But these are metaphysical questions. At the current time in human history, we cannot answer them by applying an objective study of material reality. But all of the NDEers, without exception, say that what they experienced was the ultimate reality. And they say that when we dream at night, we soon forget the dream within a day. But some of them had their NDE experience 20, 30 years ago. and they can remember it as graphically and vividly as if it happened yesterday. And it invariably has a life-changing effect upon them. So I'm not a scientist, I'm not a metaphysicist, but I can only report what I found in the NDE accounts, and that's how I would answer your question.
And I appreciate that, because I've had many people from the IANDS here on the show over the last 34 years. But let me ask you this. As a lawyer, do you think there's enough proof, physical proof, to bring into a court of law that would say, yes, near-death experiences are real?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here, Rob, but I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
There was a case in the USA, I believe it might have been Texas, involving a woman by the name of Pam Reynolds. And she had an aneurysm, I believe it was at the base of her neck. And the surgeons told her that she needed to be operated on immediately in order to save her life. And the surgical intervention necessitated actually stopping her heart for an extended period of time. So she was put under a deep general anesthetic. Her eyes were bandaged over, earplugs were put in her ears. She was, as I say, put under a deep general anesthetic. And she reported that while she was under the surgical knife, she remembers her body, her soul consciousness or spirit, lifting out of her body and going to the top of the ceiling of the surgery ward. And she witnessed all of the procedures that were being done on her after the doctors stopped her heart. And she described afterwards to the primary surgeon the exact detail of the surgical instruments he was using. So much so, in terms of detail, that the surgeon was left without doubt that there was no way that she could have made these observations in the state that she was in, that there had to be something to this notion that the soul consciousness leaves the body and is able to observe what is happening to the body. So this case of Pam Reynolds is often touted as the classic case as proof that all human beings have a soul consciousness that survives the stopping of the beating of the human heart and the stopping of the functioning of the human brain.
All right, forgive me, counselor, but based on one person's explanation, we can actually confirm that what others only believe to be real is real? Based on that one person?
Well, I'm not aware of any other cases, Rob, but that doesn't mean there aren't any.
Right.
My research was confined to the written record of these NDE accounts, and there are probably better people than I am to answer that question, but that was a pretty weighty and compelling case for me as a lawyer. So if that experience has been corroborated out there, perhaps some of your listeners are aware, or other people who have been on your program. But what I read and what I've seen of the Pam Reynolds account, and what I've read about the research of Dr. Peter Fenwick, the United Kingdom researcher in near-death experiences, there is a case to be made there and cannot be summarily dismissed.
So we're basically taking two cases and saying that because these two cases cannot be summarily dismissed, is that all the other cases pertaining to near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences are real?
Well, perhaps we haven't reached the point in human history when we can make that conclusive determination. I believe that time is drawing near, but at this point, perhaps it's a matter of free will. We can choose to believe what we want to believe and choose to disbelieve what we choose to disbelieve. But based upon my readings of these near-death experience accounts and the degree of corroboration in the Pam Reynolds case and what Dr. Peter Fenwick has researched, I'm not prepared to conclusively say that, but not prepared to conclusively rule it out either.
So, in your opinion, sir, based on the people that you've spoken to, are near-death experiences real?
For them, they are.
I'm asking about you, sir. In your opinion, are near-death experiences real?
Yes, they are. I believe that they are real. But the even more important point, I believe, Rob, is what they have to teach us.
All right, stand by, sir. We have to take a break. When we come back, I'd love to hear about what near-death experiences can teach us. Exonation, our guest this hour is Douglas Hodgson. His website is o-books.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues right here from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed at classic1220.ca.
Don't give up on us, baby. Don't make the wrong seem right. If you
Exonation, Douglas Hodgson is our special guest this hour. His website is o-books.com. And Douglas, what, in your opinion, is the significance of the near-death experience, and what can we learn from it?
Well, Rob, I've done a lot of research on comparative religion, and actually had a book published last May entitled Transcendental Spirituality, Wisdom and Virtue. And what I did was to look at some 12 of the world's mainstream religions, 5 or so from the West and 7 or so from the East. And I distilled from those 12 mainstream religions some 36 divine virtues or universal ethical principles that these religions encourage us to follow to live a better and more wholesome life. And having read the NDE accounts, I picked up a lot of examples of positive energy that seem to be reflected in the first book that I wrote. So what the NDEers call positive energy is essentially the universal ethical principles that I detailed in this book. Examples, the importance of practicing unconditional love, compassion, material and spiritual charity to others, to have joy and thanksgiving in our life, to be peaceful and contented, to be truthful, not to harm others, and not to find fault in others, to look for the goodness in them. But the NDEers would call this a form of positive energy or light energy. And I saw distinct parallels between the NDE messaging and these 36 divine virtues that I detailed in this book. And in fact, my next book, which is out in August, entitled The Near-Death Experience in Sacred Scripture, the parallel messaging examines the striking and uncanny similarities between these universal religious exhortations and the NDE messaging brought back from beyond the veil. And again, I was quite astounded by the parallel or synchronistic nature of the messaging and these religious tenets.
According to the NDEers, what is our earthly life's purpose and meaning?
Well, it's pretty simple to state, but often difficult to live and practice. But really it is to understand what unconditional love is, to manifest that to all beings, not simply other human beings, but all sentient beings. A love that does not have any strings attached to its flow, a love for all that is, regardless of the circumstances. Life is to learn, to experience, to derive joy from our experiences and relationships. Life is also about encountering problems and challenges. This is all for a higher purpose. None of us can escape problems and challenges in our lives. But what the NDEers say is that when these happen, do not be discouraged, but rather embrace them as opportunities to learn or to discern what possible lessons you must glean from these problems and challenges. So am I experiencing this in my life because I have to learn to be more forgiving or more patient or loving or trusting in God more?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the main messages, and whatever choices we make pursuant to our free will, God or the source honors and respects them, but ultimately we will be held accountable for those choices at the soul level in the context of the so-called life review.
Tell me, Douglas, what do the NDEers have to say about the so-called universal laws?
Well, there are many of them. To give you a few examples, reincarnation. That is a universal law. All of us have lived thousands of incarnations. Each one is a chapter in our book of spiritual evolution. We have to keep coming back, either in the earthly realm or other unseen or material realms, until we learn all of our lessons and get it right. So gradually but inexorably, our spirit consciousness learns and evolves towards eventual communion with the light. All of us are at a different stage of spiritual development, but all of us are on the same pathway to God. That is one universal law. Another universal law is the law of karma, or the so-called law of cause and effect. So to use the biblical metaphor, what we sow, we will reap. All that we put out into the universe will sooner or later be returned to us, whether we like it or not. Nature, our relationship with nature. The planet Earth is our mother. It is our nurturer. It provides sustenance to us. And it's a universal law that humanity must live in harmony with nature as its guardian and steward, must not take from nature more than our basic needs require and what can sustainably be produced. The NDEers consistently say that we must study nature carefully and love it because there is so much to learn from it, and that all life forms are precious and sacred. We must not have aversion to any form of life because they are all created by God. And like us, they have fear and struggle to survive. So we must respect them and have compassion for them. That's another universal law. The law of attraction. Positive understands and attracts positive. Negative energy understands and attracts negative energy. So to use a biblical verse from the New Testament, those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. So the NDEers, part of their messaging is that the cosmos or the universe is not chaos. It's not helter-skelter. It's underpinned by the laws of physics and the laws of the universe, some of which I've just referred to.
Do you think we're at a time in the evolution of society where we will fully comprehend what the near-death experience is and how they relate to what they've experienced will actually be something that we can wrap our arms around and say, all right, I get the message?
I'm quite confident, Rob. I think at this point in history, it's not a coincidence. As the NDEers say, everything happens for a higher purpose, or as an angel once said, beauty comes of all things. At this point in human history, I believe we are at the cusp or threshold of a greater and more profound understanding of what has hitherto been regarded as the unseen and largely unknowable non-material realms of existence. It's been said in the Holy Quran that the world of spirit is one of the things the knowledge of which is only with God, and that humanity has been given only a little knowledge thereof. But I believe that this is quickly changing with the advances that you've referred to in particle theory and subatomic quantum physics, with the increasing messaging of the NDEers. NDEers used to be stigmatized, I believe, when they tried to relate what happened to them, but now there is a growing acceptance of their messaging and the reality of their experience. And I can't really put a timeline on it, but I believe that things are happening at a relatively speedy and exponential rate, and that perhaps in 20 or 30 years it will be much clearer to us in terms of the validity of the near-death experience. But just while I think of it, one of the NDEers said that humanity will eventually develop so that the written and spoken language will be redundant, that we will be able to communicate telepathically with each other, which is now the case in the world of spirit. All communication is quasi-telepathic in nature, and whereas on Earth, when we communicate, there's a chance of a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation. That does not happen in the world of spirit. Nothing whatsoever is lost in translation. So I believe that we live in exciting times, and it's podcasters like you who are sort of advancing that narrative and probing the depths of this and bringing it to the attention of the wider audience.
But how do we know what the NDEers are saying when they come back is true?
Well, to be fair to the NDEers, Rob, they are under two significant obstacles in terms of their trying to relate their experience. Number one, they all say the experience was ineffable or indescribable, that human language is too impoverished to be able to convey the richness and the full meaning of it. One NDEer said, it's a bit like trying to depict a magnificent sunset by drawing it in sand on the beach with a stick. It's just not possible. And the other main obstacle is that we are only confined by our earthly experience and our earthly knowledge. And what they experienced in the world of spirit was totally alien to them.
Douglas, I hate to do this, but we do have to take our final break, so please stand by. Exonation, our guest this hour is Douglas Hodgson. His website is o-books.com. And we'll both be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on Classic 1220 and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca.
Said I'm scared, Lord, I'm scared, I'm terrified. Never been much on religion, but I sure enough would like to hear the...
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Douglas Hodgson. And Douglas, in your opinion, what is the main message of NDEers that they are bringing back to us?
One of the main messages that struck me, Rob, is that what we regard as important on earth, our earthly identity, reputation, fame, power, material wealth, the NDEers say that all of these things are considered irrelevant or insignificant or superficial in the world of spirit. In the world of spirit, what is considered most important and is the most profound manifestations of love is what we would consider on earth to be relatively small or trivial actions. So for one of the NDEers said, feeding a stray cat, or holding a door open for an elderly person who is struggling with their bag of groceries. This is what the Holy Quran calls the small kindnesses, which means so much to God and which means so much in the higher spiritual realms. These are all manifestations of unconditional love. So in religion, especially Hinduism and Buddhism, they say that to achieve enlightenment or self-realization, we must detach from the things of the world. And this is what the NDEers are talking about. We must concentrate on the higher realms and these universal ethical principles. And that's what it's all about, according to the NDEers. So, after all, when we leave this realm and leave our physical bodies behind, the NDEers say that all that we can take with us is the love that we have manifested towards others. That is ours to keep for eternity. We must leave all of these other things behind. So what's the point then of paying undue heed or importance on them if upon our physical death we have to leave them behind? I think that's a very important message of the NDEers. And they also stress this very terse or concise but profound message: we must give to the world more than we receive from it. We must realize in terms of our daily interactions that our actions and our words and even our thoughts have never-ending ripple effects. So we must be careful in how we relate with other people. And the safest rule is, of course, to live by the so-called golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That was a separate chapter in my book on transcendental spirituality, wisdom, and virtue. And that is a prominent rule mentioned by the NDEers in terms of the messaging they received at the Veil and we're told to return to the earthly life and share with humanity.
How do we know, and please forgive my skepticism when I ask you this question, how do we know what the NDEers are saying is true and not what they've read or not what they think that they should say if and when they come back?
That's a good question, Rob. That thought crossed my mind when I was looking at the written accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Are these genuinely written from the original NDE experience, or have the authors subconsciously borrowed certain thoughts or ideas or concepts from something they've read?
Mm-hmm.
That I was unable to ascertain because all of these accounts were anonymous and on the website. And some of them were very well written, and some of them were written very poorly and not at length at all, not very detailed.
But no disrespect. How do we know that what is written on a website is real and is true? We know for a matter of fact that a vast majority of what is on the web is garbage.
Well, I'd have to say that the EANS organization, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, has a very excellent reputation as the premier archivist of NDE research. They edit what is put on the archives before it appears there. And much of what I read and placed in my book, Spiritual Revelations from Beyond the Veil, was consistently repeated and corroborated too many times to be considered accidental outliers. And much of what I put in my book has been replicated by the sacred scriptures, some of which are 3,000-4,000 years old. So it may well be that some of the revelations that appear in the book may have been borrowed,
right?
But I think we can safely assume that much of what appears in the book was experienced and actually conveyed to the NDEers at the Veil. It's been corroborated by the experiences of hundreds of NDEers, and indeed there are parallel and synchronistic messaging to be found in the mainstream religions of the world, some 12 of them. So I'm reasonably confident to base my claim on that.
What about the life review that we hear about?
Well, this is where the sacred scriptures, at least of some of the religions, depart from the NDE messaging. In some religions, life is a one-off proposition, and we are judged by God on a reward-punishment basis, ultimately. This is not the consistent messaging of the NDEers. We undergo an instantaneous life review in which all of the events in our life are played back to us in a panoramic 3D holographic movie. The being of light, which is assigned to review our case, helps us to realize those instances when we did manifest unconditional love, and those instances where we could have done much better in terms of not being so unkind or nasty to other people. Ultimately, this is for our own enlightenment or self-realization. There is no judgment or condemnation. We are just shown our lives and asked to reflect on how we can do better as the basis for our next incarnation. So that is somewhat of a relief. It should be for most people to know that this is meant for the edification or for the evolution of the soul consciousness. And we essentially graduate from the school of life, and its life on earth is a preparation for our next incarnation, whether this be on earth again or elsewhere. So It's like an enlightenment or epiphany of the soul consciousness. It's something that you just can't read in a book, according to the NDEers. It's what Hinduism or Buddhism would call an enlightenment, an extinguishment of the dualism of the earthly realm, of separation and separateness, in a realization that everything is one and interconnected, and we are absorbed into the light, to an all-knowingness. And when our soul consciousness leaves the body and becomes one with the light, all of our questions are answered instantaneously. As one NDEer said, there's no such thing as a question in the world of spirit without an accompanying answer, an answer which is instantaneous, full, and complete.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
I do. And I didn't always,
Okay.
but I have come to believe in it. And that is the experience of the NDEers. And that is a belief held by the majority of the mainstream religions I researched.
In your opinion, based on your research, what is the reason for reincarnation?
Because unless you're an exceptional soul consciousness, like an ascended master, it's impossible for the spirit or the soul consciousness to learn everything it has to in one lifetime. We may undergo thousands of incarnations, either on Earth or in some other material physical realm, or even in unseen spiritual realms. But as I said earlier, we keep coming back until we learn all of the lessons we have to and get it right. And at that point, as the Buddha said, this will be my last incarnation. I'm not returning. I am absorbed into nirvana, or some would say I'm absorbed into the light totally. I become one with the light.
Douglas, where can people get a copy of your book?
It's available on Amazon, Kindle, most online booksellers, my publisher, ZeroBooks.com, Barnes & Noble, Hive, IndieBound, bricks and mortar bookshops, I think.
My
through
goodness,
chapters in Canada.
all over the place.
Yes, hopefully.
And we've got about 30 seconds left. What are your final thoughts that you'd like to share with the X-Zone Nation?
Well, I think we've reached a point in human history where the NDEers say we have to stop being so religious and become more spiritual. We have to put aside dogmatic religious beliefs and religious zealotry. We can see that right now that's being played out in different parts of the world.
Right.
I'm not saying stop being religious. Religion is good, but try to be more spiritual as well. There's a distinct difference.
Douglas, I hate to do this, but I've got to say so long for you tonight. I'd love to have you back on in the future so we can further discuss this fascinating topic. At X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, visit o-books.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca.